According to the IMF, the whole world, right, owing 100 trillion. Right now, we're owing 100 trillion, 93% of our global GDP. That means whatever we're producing across the world, okay, 93% of that, if we just turn around and everything we produce, use it to just pay debts down, that's 93%. We'll still be in debt. Only have 7% to produce to ourselves. So that means we're owing a lot of money, right? And it's easy for people to blame COVID and go, okay, COVID caused this, right? But it's been that way for the last few years, right? We've been owing and owing and owing, and each successive government across the world. So if you look at your government and think your government is bad, look at every other country and you're going to see it's a common theme. Like we've all decided to just keep printing more money. When they say printing money, that means they just decide to say, okay, we're going to borrow more. Okay, we're just going to create more debt. We're going to create more money. All governments are doing this today. Okay, and the question is, it's unsustainable. Yeah, we're going to see why here. But it's just not sustainable. Can't carry on that way. Now, I hope we can do something about this. At least this small video can help. Okay. Who am I? So I'm the CEO of Orukka. Orukka has a smart payment ring where you tap to pay, okay, with your ring. You tap to pay. You don't need your wallet anymore. You don't need your phone this day and age. You can just tap to pay wherever you are. So I've been in banking for quite a few years, about 20 years so far. So when I say this is because I'm actually a banker compared to maybe a few celebrities out there, maybe influencers and all that. Well, clearly, as you can see, I'm not. I'm at work. So I work for my customers. Yeah, my customers are my goal. But the more people talk about debt, it comes to my desk and then guess what? I have to talk about it because I love to talk. And I love to gamble as well. I love to waffle, right? So I talk a lot, okay? But here's the point, which I want to talk about on this video specifically as well, is just the amount of debt we have is just unsustainable. And I talk about crypto a lot as well. So crypto, again, I'm still on the traditional side, but we allow our customers top up with cash, top up with crypto as well. So we allow both sides, okay? And that's for our customers because I realized, a long time ago that our customers actually decide where things go. And so bankers, we think, or, look at all the top bankers, BlackRock and all these guys, they believe that they knew what was going on with crypto. But clearly we know we're not because the customers have decided, right? The governments, everyone, central banks are now issuing their own crypto. So what does that tell you about the crypto market? But I really thought the crypto would do more, right? But it's not because now we have governments going in there such that crypto is now, the next big thing that's coming through. Okay. So that's something I'll talk about as well. I'll talk about that today. But in terms of debts, right? So the question is, who are all these people owing to? So everyone's owing money. And there's always that question, who are we owing this money to? Okay. So I can tell you right now, most of the money is actually owed to investors. Okay. So private investors owe most of the money. And then banks. So banks actually buy government debt. Okay. In fact, they are one of the safest debts you can possibly own. So banks buy a lot of that. Pension funds. So me and you indirectly, when we invest our money into a pension, the pension funds go ahead and buy government debt. So the government indirectly owes us in the future. You see where this is going. So if you owe, the government is writing a debt for 100 billion, 100 million, or billions or trillions these days. Guess who's buying it? It's you in the future. You're the one buying it. And if the government goes bankrupt, then you, when you're 80 or 90, will be bankrupt because you're relying on that pension. Your pension is buying it. So it's a circle. I'm not going to call it a Ponzi scheme, but it's a thread, a circle where everyone's sort of relying on each other. There's also insurers as well. Insurers buy it, investment firms buy it as well. But I think the most amount of people generally will be central banks. So central banks buy a lot of this debt. So foreign investors buy a lot of these debts as well, especially in Europe. So in Europe, I think we have about 84% of our securities, government debts, as securities. So they're mostly bonds and that people buy. Gilts in the UK are all government debts. So basically, it's a fancy name. When they say they issue a bond, it's just a government debt. So the government has said, hey, who wants to buy this? We're going to pay you 5% or 10%, whatever they want to pay as interest. People buy it, and guess who buys it? The rich. Investors, foreign investors, other governments go ahead and buy other debts so that people are buying each other's debts across the world and we're paying. Yeah. So I want to look at in terms of numbers, right? So I have these numbers as well, which I looked into, by the way. In the USA, 30% of government debt, so 30% of government debt, when government writes or borrows money, 30% of it is owned by foreigners. Let that sink in. So 30% of what the US owes is to foreigners. So when politicians go ahead and say these things, they know what they're saying about foreigners. They know that, and they know what they're doing, but they just say it anyway about foreigners. But foreigners actually own the US, 30%. Okay. Then the others, then it goes into, it goes into the government, the other countries. So Japan, especially, and China own the most of the US debts. So when the US are owing people, they are owing China and owing Japan. So whatever war, tariff war the US is doing with China, it's good to know that this plays into it. If China wants, they can just sell the debt or just bring the value of the US debt down. Okay. Then lastly, Europe as well. Europe, large amounts owned by foreign investors as well. But the question now becomes, how does that impact you, me? Okay, let's go straight into it, right? So it impacts us because, guess what? If the government is unable to pay those interest debts, guess what? Then they can't. Like if government is owing and owing and owing and owing, they have to pay interest on those loans. So if you're owing 2 trillion, 4 trillion or whatever, right? Then you have to pay interest on it. And the more interest you pay, the less you can spend on the people, the less you can spend on the infrastructure, the roads, hospitals, the streets, the lights, things like that. All that's going to impact us. So that's where we suffer. Okay, so if you're paying interest on your debts because you had issued debts or the last government, everyone's always good at blaming the last government. Why they issue more? So especially in the UK. In the UK, before these guys got in, Labour got in, they really, really blamed the previous government. Now they are in, they issue more. And then we know you can be guaranteed with certainty that the next government coming in, whoever is claiming to be, would issue more debt. So every successful government is guaranteed to issue more debt. The same with the US, the same with any country. And the more they issue debt, the more interest they need to pay on those debts to the rich, to the pension funds, to other governments, to foreigners. So when they pay that, guess what? We suffer because you can't afford to do the streets. There's potholes everywhere, street lights everywhere, health, medical supplies, a whole lot. Okay? Then let's talk about again what suffers as well. The more interest or the more debts you issue, the higher interest rates. That's something to think about. So worst case scenario, imagine if the US, so if you go to your bank, for instance, your bank can decide, and the way the bank holds security or hold cash, when the bank holds cash, they invest, but the money they issue is the interest rates. So when they give you a loan, you pay 9%, okay, because they issue a loan to you. When they issue a loan to the government, to the government, it's lower. So it's about 2%, 3%. If the government continues to borrow, then the interest rate will go up so that they can have two choices. The government can start competing with you for a loan, which is the worst case scenario, but it can happen. We've seen governments, if you go to, developed countries, the interest rate on the government loan goes up to 10%. So in fact, you in the US or in the UK are more credit worthy than some countries. So it can happen. So the government rates can go up so much that now you're competing with the government. And if you're competing with the government, guess who the bank is going to borrow to? They'll borrow to the government. So then you suffer. That's one concern. You don't want to compete with the government. So hopefully the government doesn't carry on issuing more and more debt, because they issue a lot of debt, the interest goes up. And the interest goes up and competes with you. Then you can't get interest rate anymore. You can't get any loans anymore. You can't get a mortgage anymore. So that's something to worry about, which people don't think about, but that's something to worry. You don't want to compete with the government for interest loans. Please don't. Then also as well, lastly, then is, things that could go wrong, like the climate change. I mean, we saw the hurricane that happened recently in Jamaica, the other one that happened in the US as well, a lot of that. So it takes billions to clean those things up, right? To clean up, to, rebuild, to get infrastructure back up. It takes billions. If for some reason you're always paying your interest rates, then you don't have the time for that, or you don't have the money to be able to support that. So those are small things to think about that people have to say, okay, when people say they are issuing debt, or when the country is owing a lot, it's something that we need to start thinking about. Okay, and I've got some numbers here in terms of how much we're owing. So the US currently they owe 36. I had to write these things down because the numbers were just ridiculous. So 36 trillion is what the US owes. Okay, and it's projecting the next 5 years to go up to 45 trillion. That's almost 30% increase at this rate. So it's just up, like the graph is up in terms of how much they're borrowing. And they're paying interest on that. 900 billion per year is what we call servicing the debt. It's basically interest. They're paying interest of 900 billion per year, which is just gone, disappeared. In the UK 2.9 trillion, okay? And it's going up to 3.5 in the next few years that they're going to borrow just to carry on, okay? And how much interest? 80 billion with a B. So 80 billion is going as interest payments from the UK. Again, I talk about this as well because people always worry about foreigners. So foreigners last time cost them 2 billion and everyone was complaining. But the foreigners actually give back. If you put the foreigners to work, the foreigners will work and the foreigners will provide more to the society. So if you instead of putting them in a hotel, take them all out there, give them a job, give them a permit and say, get to work now. It happens already in Switzerland a lot. If you get in, you're not staying in any hotel, you're going straight to work. Same thing as well, do that in the UK. If you put them to work, they're going to contribute to the economy. That's better than paying for interest to the rich, to the poor, to to pension funds, to foreigners. Rich foreigners is who we are paying 80 billion to. and that money is just gone. Okay. Same thing with France, Italy, or each of them are going with trillions. India, 13 trillion, 3 trillion. China, 13 trillion. So the numbers are in the T's now, which is just crazy. And then if you look at that and compare that to how much they're paying on interest, it's in the B's, 80 billion, 100 billion, 900 billion in the US. It's crazy to think about. Is there anything we can do? Number one is anyone that comes ahead to talk about austerity, we should hold our politicians more accountable. We should be able to say, hey, what's your plan specifically to help? If someone comes and competes or and does a campaign based on unnecessary issues as well, I'd say unnecessary issues, because hey, a lot of over the last few years, I can tell you across the world, most people just campaign over unnecessary issues. The issues that, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't make a move. It doesn't move the needle. Right now, we can see in terms of the housing, how things are across the world, right? Debt across the world. If anything goes wrong catastrophically, we're going to have to borrow more. So people are borrowing a lot. The whole world at the moment, 100 trillion. So we're owing to each other. So if one government goes down, everyone's going down. So it's crazy. I'm angry just thinking about it, guys. But hey, we should do something about this. Hold your politicians more accountable, guys. That's the least we can do. Okay, hold your politicians more accountable and make sure that the next person that goes ahead and tries to issue more debt, we as a people say no. And maybe start looking at crypto. Because crypto, again, the government's already doing it. Again, we are independent here, right? So we're not going to push crypto. We don't push government debt. Actually, we go against government debt. But fiat, crypto, card, fintech, we're all the same anyway. We're agnostic there. But my point is there appears to be a strong case for crypto these days because you can't issue that anyhow. Okay. Anyway, gotta go now. Gotta go back to my customers and catch you in the next one. Take care.